You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is January 8th, 2025, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today we have a special guest with us. We have Sarah Mattson, and she is the Sacramento Rural and County Chair and Assembly Member of New California State. So this is kind of an organization that is looking to, I think, replace the government that we currently have in California, and we'll get more into that as we get into the show. But before we do that, let me introduce you to the rest of our panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have our special guest, Sarah Mattson, and my name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So we are going to talk a lot about California or New California State project. But before we do that, we always start with a quote of the day, Liberty quote of the day. And this time we have a first timer for Montesquieu. And so can we get, James, can we pull up the visual? So I thought this is really relevant to kind of the tyranny that we feel here in California a lot of times. And it says, the harshest tyranny is that which acts under the protection of legality and the banner of justice. And I don't know how many times we hear, the verbiage of the left as it's some sort of justice that they're after, yes. And it's usually inflicting injustice on the rest of us.
And everybody else, yes.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh, and by the way, Montesquieu is an 18th century judge, philosopher, and historian. And I think a lot of people actually credit him for the separation of powers idea that actually is embedded in our Constitution. So anyways, what do you guys think about this?
Sarah, you can go.
Thank you. Well, first I want to say my last name is Mattson. There's no I.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, no worries. And I love that you started out and talked about liberty, because if you've never heard this, what's the difference between liberty and freedom? With liberty, you have morality. And that is the big difference. People think they want freedom. They use the words very loosely, like, oh, I'm going to be free, or I'm going to have democracy. They're so confused about what words are. It's all about the confusion of the masses is what the left is trying to do. So that's my 2 cents about liberty.
Yeah.
And as to this particular quote, I think is very poignant at this point in time. Because we hear so much about justice in our social vernacular, shall we say? Because we hear about social justice, we hear about environmental justice, we hear about this justice and that justice, and it's just like you said, Jason. Usually, is they are trying to take away some of our freedoms and some of our liberties, take it away, so that some political agenda can be implemented, and it's going to be implemented in our name. It's a travesty. It really is. So this guy, I can't remember his name, is absolutely correct that whenever we have these forms of justice being administered under the banner of legality, it's probably the worst kind of thing that could happen to us, because many of us could end up in prison and with our freedoms taken away under this banner of legality, when in truth and in fact, it's just our liberties and our freedoms are being taken away.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a fraudulent maneuver to take away our liberty, using it under that false banner. So yes. It's completely immoral.
Yeah.
It's immoral. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, they mistake legality for morality, and the two couldn't be more separate, I guess.
Slavery was legal. Slavery was totally legal.
Yeah. So, but thanks for expanding our knucklehead view of liberty on the show, Sarah. I thought that was an interesting comment.
I think we're all looking for the same thing. We're looking to defend our liberty, and we're looking to retain what our founding fathers were so savvy. They set up a constitution and a Bill of Rights with the forethought of where they came from. They came from a monarchy, thumb on their throat rule, and they knew they never wanted to repeat that. And this is why they created a constitutional republic. Yes. And that's what we're going to retain in New California when we become a state again. We will go back to what our founding fathers meant and created for every state of the union to have.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great segue into talking about what is New California. So I'm going to pull up the webpage here. And so this is the webpage, New California, the 51st state. And, it's funny, there's a lot of different kind of liberty movements out there that are trying to, I guess, find a way to expand our horizons and liberty within the constraints that we have. And, we've talked about some of those on the show before. We've talked about the Free State Project in New Hampshire. We just talked to the president of Liberland a few weeks ago. And of course, you see exciting stuff going on in Argentina. So, I mean, there's lots of experiments happening. So I'm really interested to hear about, New California State Project and what you guys have cooking. Did you want to tell us a little bit about what is the New California State Project?
So we are a movement of the people of California. We, the people of California, feel that the tyrannical government of California has completely removed our constitutional rights. And it began, I'm sure everybody, if you mention this, if you mention the Jefferson movement, everybody has heard of it. And our founder, Paul Preston, actually was a Jefferson member back in I think, in 2010 or something like that. And during that period, it became very evident that the Supreme Court ruled that creating a state in the method that the Jefferson tried to do was not a legal method. The judge said, go back to the Constitution, figure out a way. And that's exactly what our founder did. A small group of people went back to the Constitution and discovered in Article 4, Sections 3 and 4 of the Constitution, it gave a pathway in order for one state to separate from another state. Now, in Article 4, Section 3, if you were to read the Constitution, you would see that it says a state can separate from an existing state with the approval of the state legislature. Well, we know California would never approve for the separation of a state because they love having their thumb on the throats of the citizens of California. So we followed and read on for Section 4, and what Section 4 says: every state who's a union of the state of the United States must provide security to the border. Oh gosh, I better open it up so I give you the exact verbiage. I'm doing this from memory. Let's see, 4 says. Let me read it exactly. Invasion, protection against invasion, the protection against domestic violence, and a guarantee of a bicameral legislative body. Well, guess what? California has broken their pact for all of those items. They do not provide any one of those, and therefore we're going to follow the path that West Virginia followed at the onset of the Civil War. They broke away from Virginia because Virginia seceded from the Union of States. They left the United States. They wanted to become a slave state. They wanted to join the Confederacy. And so West Virginia followed a path that said, okay, we're going to create a reorganized Virginia, and we're going to give ourselves approval to separate. And that's exactly what New California has done. So we created a reorganized California. I believe now it's going on 2 years. In 2018, officially, New California declared their independence from California. Since that date, we have written over 192 grievances of crimes that California and the tyranny of California have done against their citizens. All the way to slavery. I mean, basically, the assault of what's happening to our children, the homelessness, the invasion at the border.
And Sarah, maybe I could stop you right there because I actually had a
absolutely.
few videos and some things just to show people in case you've been living in a cave or an MSNBC echo chamber. You might not be aware of some of these things. So I wanted to show a couple of quick videos on some of the big problems California has been having. So let's see, James, maybe first you could show KOL 1, which is the homelessness problem here that California has been experiencing, and how our governor has somehow lost $20 billion in trying to address that.
California spends billions of dollars every year to reduce homelessness. Now some lawmakers want to know why it isn't helping. Cal Matters with the story today. The state auditor looking into where all of the money is going, even as the number of unhoused goes up. It's a bipartisan audit. It will be the first of its kind and will look into spending on programs like Project Homekey. They also hope to find out how much money goes to administrative costs versus providing services for people. Since Newsom has taken office, more than $20 billion have been spent to reduce homelessness, but the number of unhoused has grown by a third. A different study found that the $10 billion California spent between 2018 and 2021 helped as many as 570,000 people, but many did not actually get housing. The audit itself will cost $740,000.
And so I just wanted to show that one issue, homelessness, since you brought it up, has been a huge issue. And James, maybe you could bring up the visual here too, because HUD actually puts out numbers on this. And so it is very much a story about red states and blue states. You can see the darker states here are the ones with the much bigger homelessness problems. So some red states have some problems. A lot of times those are in the blue cities, but still, it's really bad in California, Hawaii, New York, and you can't even see it on the map here. It's so small, but the worst is Washington, D.C. itself, the District of Columbia. So it just absolutely horrendous. In fact, they even give you numbers here, breakdowns, and so you can scroll through each state. And, there's District of Columbia, 73 and 10,000 versus, say a state, say like, there's California, 46, but then you go like Arkansas and it's 9, right? So,
Right.
I mean, the scale is just, otherworldly here in places like California. And for us, we if we live in these cities, you see that what we saw in that video, those streets, those are in all of our big cities. I mean,
Exactly.
and even some of the small cities here in California too, you see encampments like that on the streets. So this is just nuts. So that's just one issue. Another issue too that was kind of addressed recently at the ballot box, but is crime as well. And James, maybe you could play KOL 2, because that's also illuminating. We've been going through just these crazy issues with people just being able to freely go into stores and steal stuff. And it's been causing stores to shut down and our cities to start to implode. James, can you show KOL 2?
Nordstrom, one of more than a dozen stores that have or plan to close their downtown locations since 2020, including DSW, Marshalls, and The Gap. Whole Foods temporarily shuttering its flagship location, citing concerns over employee safety. The mass move-out comes as the once bustling city center has emptied amid the rise in remote work and the intensified scrutiny over the city's response to crime. After a string of smash-and-grab robberies rocked retailers across the country, including these shocking scenes in San Francisco, Walmart's CEO warned retail crime was cutting into its bottom line.
That is an issue. If that's not corrected over time, prices will be higher and or stores will close.
And we've seen it. I mean, in fact, there was just a Safeway. That story was about a year old, but a Safeway that was in the Fillmore district just closed and leaving a whole area without a grocery store, a fairly big area. So, I mean, this is, just nuts, some of the stuff that's been happening. But anyways, those are a few of the issues. So, Sarah, I'll hand it back to you since you were diving through that. But I just wanted people to see it because it's not just, we're not just talking here.
We're not just talking. This is really happening. What's fascinating is that when we entered the Union of States in 1850, we actually were constitutional. Our Constitution was it was ratified as a constitutional republic. And what happened 30 years later was some imperialist, I'm not going to say what entity, but they came and changed our Constitution. And that's the current Constitution that's being followed by these state legislators. Another very vital thing that happened in 1963 was the Reynolds versus Sims passing, which no longer was one senator representing each county. Now, one senator in California represents 1 million people. So here's an example. In LA County, you have 10 senators. In San Francisco, you have 8 senators. Up here in the rural part of California, one senator represents 15 counties. So it does not represent we the people. They've turned it into a uniparty and into I would say a completely diabolical one-party rule led by a tyrant, and they passed legislation in the middle of the night. They've changed the Constitution, that 1879 Constitution, over 900 times. It's incredible what they've done, and they've basically have passed laws that are DEI appropriate, like anybody who wants to come here and have surgery to change your gender, do
Well,
it.
And Sarah, I wanted to bring up another article real quick now that you brought that up too. We just passed a law that's gone into effect now in the state where and we talked about this on our last show with Susan Shelley, where we wrapped up all the new laws, but that are going into effect this year. But this one requires that teachers not tell the parents if they see some disturbing behavior with a kid. If a kid is having some psychological confusion around their gender, sex, whatever. I can't imagine the idea that we would have a school system that tries to keep secrets between of the child from the parent around mental health.
The state of California has taken control of the children in the public school system.
Yes.
And it's just a disheartening thing what they've done. They've completely, do I dare use the word demonic? I mean, it's just almost evil what is happening. And they obviously don't care and represent we the people. They have their own agenda, and it's completely warped. And literally, the citizens are fed up with it. And this is how the movement started in California.
So, Sarah, just for clarification, this new California state, if it's ever come into fruition, is it going to have the same boundaries as the current California?
It will have, it's going to be separated by population. And that's one document I forgot to send over. It's a visual with a map that shows, unfortunately, it's not handy right now, but it basically, visualize, how the current map looked, where you saw in November, the November 6th election, and you saw a bunch of red counties that switched. Well, it's going to look very similar to that, but maybe even a little bit more New California. So it's going to be an even split. Right now, there are 40 million people in California. New California will have 20, and old California or existing California will have 20 million. There are currently 58 counties in California right now. We will have 57, and old California will end up with about 22 counties. And here's how. You're probably thinking, how could that be? It's because some of the very large counties right now, I mentioned LA County right now, they've got 10 million people. They've got 10 senators. One senator represents 1 million people, right? Well, they're going to break up that big county so that there really is representation of we the people. Our intent by making New California is to make 2 great states again. I mean, I'm a native Californian. I love California. But what has happened with the leadership in this state? It's gotten so warped. It's gotten so it's gotten out of hand what they've done to not
Sarah,
only.
I did have a question for you, because you talked about like the red districts are the ones that would probably go over to the new California if this is able to happen. But
Pretty much everything rural.
Okay,
Rural
but
counties.
does that mean that the people because it's usually in a lot of these places, it's like, we're in Sacramento, and even though there are, the majority of people are Democrats here, there are either covert Republicans or libertarians like us.
Notice my title. My title says, so Sacramento's a great county to talk about. So,
yeah.
So as I mentioned, there are 58 counties in California. Okay, right now there's 7 earmarked to be split. LA's one, Contra Costa's another, and Sacramento's one. There's a series of others, right? In Sacramento County, the boundaries are not exactly set, but you can be assured everything that's close to downtown, where the Capitol is, visualize like the area of Oak Park and Tahoe, all those little areas close to the downtown area, midtown area, they will remain existing old Sacramento. Everything east, where the boundary is going to be, we don't know. It's not set exactly yet. It will be very soon, though, and it will become very obvious. The map will be shown. I'm going to, just for argument's sake, let's say the boundary will be everything east of Howe.
Okay.
So Howe, Carmichael, Fair Oaks, Citrus Heights, Orangevale, all the way down to Elk Grove, Galt, north, all the way up to North Highland, Natomas, will all be rural Sacramento. Will our name stay the same, Sacramento Rural? I think to start off, it will. Perhaps eventually the citizens who will then occupy and become the board of supervisors for the new county, they might decide, okay, wherever our county seat is, let's say our county seat becomes Folsom. Maybe the name will become Folsom County. I don't know.
Well, how will this work? I mean, like, will you guys, essentially have your governmental board, and you'll just come and challenge the current governmental board that's there?
Well, we established Reorganized California last year. So visualize in your mind 3 highways with semi trucks driving down simultaneously together, right? Existing old California, and we know they have no money. We'll talk about the budget because I know we're going to run out of time. We're getting close. And then Reorganized California, which will help implement the change from existing old, and then New California. So 3 simultaneous. Once we start to roll along, then eventually Reorganized will no longer exist. California will exist, and New California 51 will exist. How does that happen? It happens in Congress. We submitted a missions bill. It will be presented in the floor in Washington, D.C. And at this time, it's very favorable because we have a right-minded Republican House, Senate, and President. And President Trump knows about New California. He's notice the advertisement for the event that's happening in March of national. Notice what it says. It says of national, a national event, a national importance happening in California, and the little tagline says, "Trump is sewing on the 51st star."
Now, I did hear though that Greenland might beat you to it.
I heard. I saw that.
That's what we hear these days.
I saw that, but believe it or not, we've been working on this. It should have happened in the pandemic year 2020. But of course, what happened? California was on the way to financial ruin, as they are now.
And by the way, let me show just a couple of numbers here. So, James, maybe you could bring up the visual here. So this is just an article from back in mid 2024, and it talks about how we went from record-setting surplus, which, by the way, was a little bit kind of tricky because during that COVID time, we had a lot of federal dollars infused into the state. So
that's how they survived. That's exactly how they survived.
So there's that, but they talk too. Here's an article from Hoover Institute, and they talk about how that the growth has just been crazy over the past 5 years of spending per person. And it said it's like increased by about 38% per person spending, which we're not seeing the benefits of that. I mean, that's the crazy thing,
Well, here's what's happened. Logically, what's happened is the income coming from personal income tax has diminished greatly. Why? Major corporations, Chevron, Elon,
Yes.
he left.
Yes.
They're not collecting the revenue as they once were. And the reality, the best article that's out came out on December 20th directly from the California Controller's Office, the Office of the Auditor, and he said that the budget of California, the entire time Newsom has been in office, he's never submitted an audited budget timely. There were years he missed it, and he has no credibility whatsoever. And the auditor, California auditor himself, reported that we cannot trust the budget. He named the EDD fund, he named the CalSTRS fund, he named the school funds. They are not to be believed. There's no guarantee of any of the income revenue stream that's supposed to come in. because we're losing people. We're losing corporations. The income stream is just diminished greatly. And, it's just unbelievable. They're still afloat. Now, a state is not allowed to file bankruptcy. But will the federal government bail them out? I doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Pelosi's not the
so
speaker.
I want to be clear about something here. So this plan to get a new state is a plan to really divide the state of California, the current state of California, into two pieces: old California and rural California, and this will be adjudicated in the House of Representatives, or in Congress, I guess, in general. That
Right.
essentially is the plan.
That is the plan. That is a constitutional pathway to do it.
Okay, got it. Now
And
you said that that California have violated three of the tenants within the I don't know what article and clause you quoted. Three of those tenants. One was invasion. The other was, what was the other two?
Well, there's four, I think. Yeah.
Was four?
Well, it was a total. You know what? I'll read it exactly so you know. So the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republic form of government.
Okay.
And shall protect each of them against invasion. That's not happening. And on application of the legislature, which means a bicameral, or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened, and against domestic violence. Well, all three of those have been broken by California.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
all
not
three
sure
of those guarantees.
The bicameral. Why is that broken? I'm not sure. Why is that broken?
We have a uniparty, and the manner of how. So, in other words, it's a major majority of Democrats, and the method of how they've divided the state representation by, for example, in LA County, they first, most importantly, it's the machines. Voting by machine. I assure you, if we went back to paper ballot one day, count at the end of the day, voter ID, prove that you are a resident of the county that you say you reside in, and we find out the results at the end of the day, I assure you, we would, I would say 30, at least 25 to 30% of the Democrats in office would lose their job.
By the way, if I have to break in, but if you're watching on public access, you're going to have to catch the rest of the fireworks offline, or online rather, off of public access. So come check out the rest of the show there, and you can find us at knuckleheadsofliberty.com and other places, and find a lot of other good conversations we've had there as well. Anyways, back to the discussion. By the way, I did have just one little pushback on the term bicameral, because it sounds like that's more about the structure of the actual government body, but not necessarily the whether or not there's one or two parties. Because I know, in fact, I think even a lot of the guys who wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were worried about the disintegration into two parties.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I agree with that. I'm no party stated. I don't believe in the party system myself. On the application of the legislature or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened, how do you interpret it? That's the third item. On the application of the legislature.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding something here, because I think Jason is correct about the issue of the bicameral. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're trying to tell us.
Well, so in other words, right now we have a legislature and a Senate that are completely controlled by one party. It's not it's not a representation of what the people are. And I think that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, what's happened definitely is we had a situation like where, for instance, in the federal government, the states only agreed to be part of the union if they had equal representation in the sense of the number of senators that they had, because otherwise they would just be dominated, which is what's happening to small counties or the small population counties in
you
California.
hit it right. On the
So,
nose. That's
yeah.
exactly right. I just had this conversation with somebody on Telegram that our founding fathers were very smart. This is why they created the Electoral College. You could be a tiny little state in the middle of Timbuktu, Kansas, for example, very little population, right? And you still get 2 senators, right? And so that's changed in California. That no longer applies. So we are assuming all the rural counties, which is pretty much everything, almost everything east of, there's a little yellow dot of Democratic in Sacramento, and then it goes to the coast, and then everything else in California is pretty much rural and conservative. And they should be represented by conservative senators who the people elect. But that's not how it works. One senator represents 1 million people. That's why Brian Dolly, the senator in our section of the state up here, represents 15 counties. So he's got 15 district attorneys, 15 sheriff offices, 15 board of supervisors, 15 budgets that he has to deal with, which is so unfair. There's no representation.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about is, because it sounds like you guys have already populated the offices for these, because you're an assembly person within the new state of California. So, I guess. How is that? I guess what's that like being? I mean, we just talked to the president of a country who's trying to establish a country. You guys are trying to establish a state, but yet
Yes.
you're not official yet. But you all you have offices, I guess, or not
We volunteer.
physical offices, but you have at least offices in the organization of the
right. So technically right now, New California State is a 501c4. It's an educational organization. And we're here to educate people about the Constitution and their liberties and with the proper pathway, and to explain what is happening, right? To let them know there's a pathway to get out of this tyranny that we're experiencing. And once we become a state, let's say our admissions bill is on the floor, let's say it's there next month, and they vote on it, it's just a simple majority, 51 to 49, it passes, we're a state. Okay, immediately the offices, like assembly, we will transition in. We're volunteers. Nobody gets a paycheck. We all just volunteer our time. I have a regular full-time job. And it's really hard.
This sounds, by the way, like the real founding fathers, right? I don't think there was a paycheck for a lot of them.
No. We volunteer. I think what, for me personally, my story is I was so annoyed and just bewildered. How could this be happening? I thought I lived in America. I looked at the world through rose-colored glasses, and literally just you just have to vote and everything will be okay. And all of a sudden you find out that no, it's not happening this way. And the gut reality stepped in, and I go, something else has to happen, and I need to do something. And I started listening to different blogs and different websites, and I heard Paul Preston, who's technically now, he volunteered and got nominated to be the temporary pro tempore governor. Now, all of us, I'm not going to run for office. When we're a new state, I'm going to go back and do what I do, which is I'm an artist, and that's what I want to do. I'm just stepping in right now because I want to retain liberty. I want our constitutional rights retained, and I'm so worried for our children. I have lots of nieces and nephews. I don't have children, but I'm surrounded by children, and I'm so concerned about their future if something doesn't happen. And that's what motivates me.
So are you guys working with somebody in Congress to try and get this through? Because this looks like a monumental task.
It is a monumental task. And yes, we've gone back already this year alone, 2024. We had 3 visits to Washington. Prior to that, I think we had 1. So the progress has been building. Right now, we have 1 representative. There was some kind of a clamp down. We had intended to have delegates on the floor during January 6th counting of the Electoral College votes. And we were told that we were not would not be allowed in. There was a security, something happening, and we were blocked. But that's okay. Next week, we're going to have delegates go back. And by the end of this month, we're probably going to have 20 delegates back. Yes, Leon, we are working, and I'm not privy to the names. They haven't told us for security reasons.
Okay.
We have it on both sides of the aisle, and other states, not just California, delegates, rather congressmen, congresspersons that are supportive, and we feel confident to say that when the time comes to present our admissions bill, it will be presented by a sitting representative.
Well, Sarah, one of the questions I have for you, and it's, I think me and Leon are both on the wrong side of the line where you guys are going to draw the line here. And so,
It sure sounds like it.
Are you in Sacramento County?
Well, we are, but we're in, we're both in southern Sacramento, and so I think we're not going to wind up falling on the right side of the line.
Maybe. So I know. So how far south are you?
Well, I'm actually in the pocket area, and I don't know if Leon wants to.
I'm not sure. I do know.
I'm in El Grove.
You're safe, Leon. You're New
Well,
California.
see, I may not be here for long. I think where I'm moving to, I'm going to go closer to the coast. I'm going to be actually on the coast, a little southwest of here. So I may have a problem after you draw your lines.
Well, I'll wait. So you can almost imagine the Sacramento River. Sacramento River divides West Sac and Sac.
Yes.
I think it's gonna New California will go as far south. I haven't seen. The map is being done as we speak right now.
Let's cross our fingers.
I think I'm in trouble. Really, I think I'm in trouble because when I move from where I am right now, I'm seriously going to be in a problem here.
So you're moving from Elk Grove to where?
Yes, I'm moving down to down further southwest, next to the coast.
Oh, you're not actually leaving Sacramento County. Okay.
Yes,
So,
I will be. Yes, eventually. Yes, sometime this year. I don't know when.
You're running in the wrong direction, Lee. Freedom is the other way.
Freedom's east. Yeah. So that's good.
I'm scared already.
Yeah. Well, but one of the reasons I was asking that question though is are there? Because surely not everybody who is on the right side of this line, I guess, is going to be a conservative or a libertarian. There's going to be some people who probably identify as Democrat, and I was wondering, as you start to get farther rural, do Democrats in those areas, do people self-identify as Democrats and hate what they see going on from the big cities? Are they kind of unified with the conservatives in those areas, or?
I think to want liberty is a common sense issue, not a party issue. And I was born a Democrat. My parents were both Kennedy Democrats, and that's what I remember. Being a rebellious.
They've gone a long way from there. The Democrat Party left you.
That's right. Big time.
That's right. You're right about that. And it's gotten so far ridiculous, their agendas, that what they push, it's I said it earlier in the interview, it's downright demonic. I just don't understand. It doesn't make any common sense to me why they're trying to push these bizarre agendas to our children, particularly.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Well, I think this is where we really go astray when we don't think about things from an individual liberty perspective. There's no end to the chaos you can generate if you think you can control people's lives top down through the state, because everybody has different ideas as a planner of what's good for other people. And I think that's, at least for libertarians, I know that's what offends us the most. We think, regardless of whether you sort of lean left or right in your preferences,
Yes.
you want to be treated as an individual and not just one size fits all from the
Exactly.
planners in the
I
state.
was a libertarian one time. I've been a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, a Green Party. What's left? Now I'm no party stated. I don't belong to a party.
Well, maybe RFK will find a party.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's amazing. But I think what's going to end up happening is right now. Thank you so much, Jason and Leon and Knuckleheads. I love it because you're giving us the avenue and a venue to be able to exposure. Here's an amazing story. Our founder, Paul Preston, has put New California into Wikipedia. As you know, Wikipedia is one of those you can input anything you want. Well, whoever monitors the Wikipedia, every single time he puts in a new page describing New California, it lasts 15 minutes and it gets removed.
Wow.
He's done this countless times in the past several years. And we are just thumbs down. They don't want us to be made aware. They don't want people to know about it. It really is a grassroots, you tell two friends effort. So you're really helping us to get the exposure we need. And I just hope your audience tells two friends. There's hope. And that's how it worked for me. I mean, I saw Paul being interviewed on, maybe you've heard of him, Dave Hodges.
Yeah, no, the name's familiar. I probably
He's one of
recognize
those
his
typical
face.
blogs. Yeah, like Mike Adams, Brighteon, all the, you just start X22, right? We all start looking for avenues of, there has to be a solution. What's going on? I can't believe this is happening. And I heard Paul talking about New California and the new statehood process. And I said, oh my God, there's hope. I can't believe it. So that's how I first got the spark of interest. I started attending the every Sunday and Wednesday evening public Zoom calls where you could just listen in. And if you get motivated, you raise your hand in a Zoom call and ask a question. And before you know it, I started getting more involved. I attended a convention. In 2022, I attended my first convention. And after that, I said, you know what? You got to do something. If not us, who? If not now, when? Because it's going to be too late.
Yes.
Well, Sarah, one of the things I guess I wanted to ask you about for New California as well is, are there certain principles that have been set for the way that they think government should be in our lives or not? I mean, the limits of government in our lives, or is this more of just a conservative movement, or because I'm kind of curious. I know I heard one of the speakers, I guess, that there was a video on your guys' website where I can't remember who it was, but I think it was the president.
It could have been Paul.
Yeah. And so, but he was talking about how there's certain things that they just literally don't, that those things will disappear from government if they get their new state. So, I mean, are there different ways you guys would handle homelessness or the crime problem that we've seen, or, the immigration issue? Are there certain strategies that you guys already have in place that once day one starts? So.
Yeah, when day one starts, right now I sit on assembly and I'm on the committee specifically for tax relief. And I can assure you that within weeks of us becoming a new state, there's going to be an immediate relief of tax. Things will not exist anymore. And these silly gasoline taxes that we have in California, because we have to have a special blend.
What's funny about that is what you're also experiencing there is the issue that like with everything, it's mostly an LA problem, but you guys are dealing with it, way out in the middle of nowhere where it's not a pollution problem as much. So, all of those things we're paying because it's a problem from the perspective of, and of course, smog is really bad in Los Angeles.
It's urban. It's urban versus rural, and the rationality of that everybody should pay. A good example is because have you heard about the EDD fraud that occurred during the pandemic?
During the
COVID?
lockdown, was this where the prisoners were able to literally get funds from the
Yes.
jails, and it was like $10
Yes.
billion lost?
It's more than that. It's more than that.
Okay.
They admitted to 80. California admitted to a loss of over 80. It's $88 billion, and they've admitted to that loss. We think the number's a lot bigger, probably closer to 200 billion. What was happening? These funds were coming in from the federal government, and the labor of what's her name? Sue is her last name. I can't think of her first name. She was supposed to be the labor secretary for the United States. Biden nominated her and Senate rejected her. And yet she defied, and Biden defied what the Senate ruled. And she's sitting there right now serving. Well, they just found out she lied about labor statistics. So she's just a liar. And she's the cause of the EDD fraud. Apparently the funds were these cards with funding were going to prisoners who were being released from prison, never filed for unemployment, yet a legitimate person who lost her job can't get a claim.
And I think in some cases, prisoners were able to get these and then just give them to the people that they had on the outside too. So, I mean, it was like just all kinds of fraud that is insane. I mean, we spend over $100,000 a year in the state per prisoner. And the idea that, now we're handing them an income too, with these cards, I just,
it's unbelievable. Even with the illegals, they just get a card for income as well. It's just so irrational with how the government of California is handling, and this is why they're in such a deficit and default. And so, please go to the website of the Comptroller's Office, State of California Comptroller's Office, and look at the report dated December 20th. It is blaring. They will never be able to get any kind of a municipal bond. Nobody will. Their numbers are so fraudulent and cannot be counted on, is basically what the controller said. He just admitted we're in so much financial, we're about to crash. And so they always seem to get a saving grace. Didn't they just get some federal funding for the fires?
Yeah.
I think. Did I hear that today?
I'm not sure. I've only been hearing sort of. I've been a little insulated here in Sacramento. I haven't seen as much about it not being in the southern part of the state, but I've certainly been hearing little bits and pieces. But I don't know if there's been federal funds or not. But it's funny. Joe Biden is just spraying out money like a fire hose on his way out of office.
He wants to cause as much trouble as he can for POTUS Trump. It's amazing. So, but getting back, the financial, there's just, the truth is we're so much closer now to becoming a state because, and it's the misery of California. They've created it themselves. The legislative body, the governor himself, they're not trustworthy, and they can't handle the budget. That's the problem.
Well, here's one question I have from a libertarian perspective, because I mean, we're always skeptical of government, whether it's wearing blue or red. We're always skeptical. But one of the questions I was wondering is, so if you start this new state, what kind of protections will you be putting in there to make sure that this doesn't happen to New California, right? That you guys don't just become old dystopian California.
Yes. First of all, the many of the county supervisors and county, even Governor Newsom himself, have received affidavits of declarations that they committed crimes. And so anybody who received one of those and never responded in the proper manner would automatically be rejected to be able to hold an office in New California. So that's one way. The second way is where our Constitution is going to mimic what the original 1850 Constitution was, which is very similar to our 1776 United States Constitution, which really is protecting our liberties and our fundamental amendments, like First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, all these very important fundamental rights we have as citizens of the United States. Additionally, our legislature will go back to being part-time. Right now, the legislature, they stay in office for 40 years. Look at Pelosi, look at Feinstein, right?
Yes.
They enter in mediocre wage earners and exit billionaires.
Yes.
And blatantly say, yes, we should be able to trade. We should be able to know the insider information and make stock trades so we can become wealthy. I mean, they just tell you in your face what they're going to do, and that will be illegal. And here's the number one thing that's going to make New California completely different than old California, and that is our Constitution will be impossible to ratify and change. It's going to take about a 75 or 80% a vote to make a change in the amendments. What happened in 1879 when they replaced our original Constitution? Our original Constitution was a legitimate, true Constitution, ratified and approved by Congress. They replaced it where it's a simple majority. You could change. They made over 900 constitutional changes to that Constitution, and that will not happen in New California.
So going back to the legislators, you say they're going to be part-time. Will they be term limited?
Absolutely. Okay. Term limited and part-time legislature that will probably meet 3 to 4 months out of the year, do their business, and go back and be a dentist. Go back and do your job. Yeah.
There's something else now. So if we're going to term limit the legislators, what about legislation itself? Should they also, will you guys also look into the possibility of having a date of effect, the day that it comes into effect, and also a sunshine? And if it's so wonderful, the legislators should have to repass them?
I think that many of any legislature change would probably have to go to the vote of the people. I don't think the elected officials, that's a good question I cannot answer. So I will find out though,
okay,
Leon, and I'll and I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And but as far as when, are you asking when our Constitution will be in effect?
No. Maybe let me be clear. Okay, if you look at what is happening right now, the legislators, they pass these laws, and these laws stay on the books forever and ever and ever. Few of them will have, very few of them have sunshine dates. I am asking the question: if we're going to term limit, your first question answer was you will term limit the legislators. Now I'm asking about the legislation itself. If we're going to have a date of effect for legislation, why don't we not also have a sunshine date? And if the legislation is so wonderful, they will just have to repass it or it dies.
And Leon, I think you mean sunset date, not sunshine. Sunshine is about transparency.
Oh, maybe that's why I'm confusing, Sarah. My apologies. I mean sunset.
That's a good question for the legislation itself, because the legislators will be gone after their term. Yes. So I will ask that question, and I'll get back to you and let you know.
Great, thank you. And sorry about the confusion. Thank you, Jason. I meant sunset. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I had at least one more big question before we start to get to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. But what are the biggest challenges you guys are seeing on the horizon? I mean, you sort of have, like, you're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, it sounds like.
Yes.
What are the who are the big enemies? What are the challenges that are going to kind of the ogres that you guys are going to have to overcome?
Well, so it's almost a twofold. They're equally a problem, and that is the public awareness, number one. And then there's a group of individuals in the old California and even proclaim themselves to be patriots, and we can fix old California, we can fix it, right? And they don't want us to exist, and so those are probably twofold side by side issues. I think when the common sense, when people discover that we're going to go back to the Constitution, we're going to go back to a way to protect your constitutional rights, your amendments, and you're going to like your ability to, you could go in the morning to a gun shop, make an application, get your gun, get that background check, and take your gun home that day. And your Second Amendment, your First Amendment, all your fundamental rights in schools, public schools. When parents hear that the funding will follow your choice of where you want to educate your child. So if you want to send your child to private Christian school, if you want to leave your child in public school, if you want to homeschool, the funding will follow your child. It's common sense. When people understand, we feel the majority will say, yes, I'm on board. I want this way of life to come back. And then fighting the people who are just they don't want to lose their power. They don't want to lose their money. There's a money grab. And Leon touched on something very important. Leon was talking about the legislations itself. And you're right, Leon. Old California passes tens of dozens of legislation per year. Yes. And then they are not removed. Right. And this is what I made the comment. There's over 900, numbers like 910 or something. I don't know what it is exactly. Legislative changes to the Constitution. They've now put themselves into a corner financially that now they're committed to pay. And this is why they're in the budget deficit that they're in. They've created the problem. And that's why there's no way to fix old California. They got to dump their current constitution. I don't know how they're going to fix it, but you know what? We'll take on, since we're taking the mass of the landmass, New California is prepared to take on that cost because we're going to have more of the land. But we're not going to take on their fraud debt. Yes. That EDD, that's their problem. They created it. They lied. They stole it.
The state of California in its existing configuration has debts on the books. So when we have this separation, I understand the issue about the fraud debt. When you have this separation, what about the debt that might be classified as legitimate? How is that?
Then we'll take it on. The New California will take it on. For example, here's a good example. I'm a teacher, and I bought into the CalSTRS program. Maybe some of you have friends or family who are either CalSTRS or CalPERS retirees, right? Okay, then New California will make it good. California is diabolical. They last year they owed $33 billion. They were paying a debt. If I'm not mistaken, I'll look up the details. I think it was for EDD payback to the feds. They didn't have the money. They took it from CalSTRS budget. You can't do that.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Well, and it's not just that too, but we see this happening with the oh gosh, what is that? I can't remember what the term is, but with corporations, they have these indicators that are essentially like how woke they are, how friendly they are to the right causes.
The ESG you're talking about?
Not DEI, but it's
ESG.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the ESG scores for the corporations, and I mean that was all. My understanding is that was all started by a lot of these Democrat politicians who wanted to steer our retirement dollars that are in those CalPERS funds and CalSTRS funds towards, which are huge funds, and they wanted to stir those toward essentially Democrat-friendly causes and stuff. So, I mean, it's just, like you're saying, one thing after another, they're abusing, because that's a fiduciary responsibility they have to those people who are retirees. Yeah.
They're not allowed
And
to
the
touch
idea,
a retirement
yeah,
fund.
yeah.
It's
Yes.
federal law, and they're just the manipulation, and they've gotten away with it for decades. And
Yeah.
it's there's no fixing old California. So anybody listening to this, if you are a sincere, I don't care what your party is, but but if you love California and you currently work for the state government of California, we need you. We need you to help the transition. We need you to join us. We need folks who are well aware of the state runnings so that when we make the transition, things will run smoothly and the transitions will happen. Obviously, there's entities that can't be separated. For example, sewer and water. You in Sacramento County, the same sewer and water company is going to still give the sewer and water for a region. It's not going to change. It's just, different. You're just going to give it to New California. Then you're going to give it to, it's so it has to continue.
Well, certainly some government. I did hear in that statement by, I guess it was the president that of your or of the new state, that there would be some government entities that wouldn't exist anymore. so some of us may not actually transition.
So you're talking about NGOs, right?
No, just
Non-government.
there are some government entities out there, like for instance, some of the environmental protection stuff and some of these others. I had heard that some of those were supposed to go away.
Well,
they should. They should. All those fires that we seen in Southern California, that's forest mismanagement. That's
exactly.
what that is.
Yeah, they're doing a bang up job.
Yeah, Leon, you're right, but Jason, you're right too. So the reality, here's what's going to happen. Right now, Old California has 20 layers from upper management all the way down to lower management and people who actually do the work, right? Well, New California is going to eliminate 10 of those. We might have 7 or 8 layers of management. And so the high white tie guy who makes $300,000-$400,000 a year for pushing paper around will probably lose his job. You're right. The people on the ground who do the work will have a job.
Yeah.
So
there's an old meme. I wish I would have had it available for this, but it shows like 10 guys standing around a hole with one guy digging in the trench. And then it said, it looks like budget cuts are coming, and old Bob, who's down there digging, is going to have to get laid off because he has the least seniority. Everybody else is just standing watching, administrating, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess the problem is you can't use AI to dig a hole.
Yeah.
Right? So New California is going to be into, so I work at a junior college, they used to call them junior colleges, right? But having skills, plumbing skills, knowing how to do electrical, being a mechanic, AI can never replace that. So we're going to really, the jobs will grow in New California. We're going to oil, water, things like that.
Well, as we're getting to the end here, one of the things I want to do real quick is just give you a chance to talk about a few events before we get to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. So you have an events page, and I know you do have something coming up on the 11th. And so here's the webpage mention of it. And you guys also had a flyer for it, but it sounds like there's going to be a gathering at the Capitol on January 11th to celebrate the change in direction.
Yes. Well, if you see that little blurb there, I won't say it out loud, but Trump is saying something there. The famous Apprentice movie.
Oh, yeah. If only.
Don't be surprised, Jason. You may see some fascinating things happen here in the next 2 months. But that is going to be a celebration, a rejoice. Please join us if you are anywhere in surrounding counties or in Sacramento proper. Just come on down. We will have our canopy, our booths set up, and I'd love to meet you both in person. Come on down, meet us, and there's going to be music, there's going to be food trucks, it's going to be speakers, and you'll get a chance to hear Governor Pro Tempore Paul Preston say a few words about our state of statehood. So, and he loves talking, so ask him questions.
Is it just going to be your organization, or are there other
No,
organizations out there as well? Okay.
many other organizations, all the way from local organizations. 1776 Freedom Riders will be there, and Save the Blue, I believe, is in Nevada County, and then up and down the state of California. We're anticipating this to be a statewide event, so come on down.
Okay.
So when is it? When is this going to be?
This Saturday.
Oh, this
January.
Saturday.
Well, that's why I was really motivated to be with you today,
Yeah.
if I could swing it, right? Because I was still a good citizen. I do my duty. So, it's this Saturday starting at 10 a.m. down at the West Steps, right on 10th Street.
Yeah, so that's
Okay.
January 11th, just in case you're seeing this after it happens. We don't want you heading down another Saturday and joining the wrong movement.
Right.
But anyways, so there's that. And, like I said, you guys have a whole page of other events too. So let me know, where was that? Here it is. So there's plenty of other things, I guess, that you can connect with the New California Project as well. Before we go, I did want to hit our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, because it kind of shows just puts a cap on the insanity of why people might want to leave the state, of why some people might feel that this isn't right for them. So recently in San Francisco, they have hired a fat positivity expert, and it's the San Francisco Department of Public Health hired this woman to consult, and the idea is she's trying to tell people that, I guess that you shouldn't try not to have a lot of extra weight, which we kind of know is a little bit insane, because these do cause health problems at some point. I mean, you don't want to make fun of people or anything, but you certainly don't want to just push yourself in that direction either. And so, anyways, this woman is so bizarre. We wanted to show the video, so I've cut this one video she had about, of all topics, cake, which, if you are struggling with your weight, you should probably cut down on the amount of cake you eat. Is probably a good idea. And but she doesn't think so. So here is her video, and it's beyond belief. So James, can you play KNP1?
ERFI. If you're like many women, you've been to a birthday party or a small office gathering, an event that's meant to bring people together. There's swinging tunes, some adult beverages, and good convo. And then it comes time to cut the cake, and someone decides to ruin everything. A cake-related fat-phobic incident, or CRFI, is that moment when it's time to eat delicious cake and it's interrupted by a moralizing impulse. Inevitably, there's always someone at the party who has to declare publicly that their slice is too large, and that the person who's cutting the cake, almost invariably a woman, must do some disproportionate amount of labor in order to accommodate their need to feel superior.
So we edited that just a little bit, but the craziness is all there. And then she goes on even further with examples of some other women here, and where she starts talking about the sexism and everything else of trying to, be, I guess, responsible with your weight. I don't know. Anyways, let's hear, James, can you play KNP2 real quick?
Women are disproportionately negatively affected by diet culture because diet culture maps onto sexism. Controlling how much you eat is part of what it means to be a, quote, good woman. These are the mechanisms that are at the core of diet culture and weight control. The idea that you can position yourself as superior to others through self-control and self-denial is super sexist. CRFIs have a history of creating a hierarchy among women and ultimately in maintaining misogynist expectations.
So now we're finding out that trying to maintain your weight is somehow sexist and misogynist.
Yeah.
This is the insanity with the left. Everything is ruled by this agenda that is so abnormal. It's just doesn't make any common sense.
Well, but those are your tax dollars too. I mean, we're wondering how we got into all this trouble, and government is spending money on people to give you insane messages like that.
Thank you.
Well, Well, you know, Sarah said insanity, but I don't think she went far enough. This is insanity on steroids. Okay,
Yeah.
this is iOS, the other iOS, not the one in your phone. This is iOS, insanity on steroids, and we've seen too much of this in our society these days. And the thing about these things is that the left always find some way to take some nice fancy word and try to make it sound very good. Like this damn nonsense is being called body positive. Why you want positive? What is something obesity is not body positive? What the hell is wrong with these people? I mean, I'm sure I have empathy for these people that sure they probably have a struggle in their life, and you know, God help them, God bless them, and I hope they could overcome the struggle. But don't try to tell me that is something good. Okay, body
You're
positive
right.
is not something good. It's a bunch
You're
of crap.
Jason, what does she have a government position?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
apparently, I'm not sure if she's just she may just be a consultant,
She's a
but she's being
consultant. I'm
paid.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but she's
Well,
being paid by the government
So
to
that's an
Yes.
NGO that will be gone.
Yeah.
New California.
yeah, we're going to put government on a diet.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Did you hear the
Well, then
stat?
in that case, I definitely believe in body positive, but going in the other direction.
Yes,
for
but did you
government.
hear the stat last month
Yes.
that in California, 93% of the jobs were government jobs, private business nil. So either
Yes.
they moved or they lost their business. I mean, it comes back to common sense,
Yeah.
and that's ridiculous. So that's one of those NGO organizations. No more.
Yeah.
No more.
Well,
Yeah.
and you know, it's funny. I mean, from a libertarian perspective, by the way, too, a slim government looks a lot better than a bloated government.
Yeah, really, seriously.
but I got to tell you, though, that one thing that really struck me in that, though, is if you noticed her language. You know, they literally they make up this crazy language. She called it a cake-related fat phobic incident, or a RFI, and I mean, it's almost like I don't know if she's published a paper on this. I'm sure there's some terrible journal that would take.
Literally,
She probably have a PhD. But the way these campuses are going these days, she probably has a PhD from one of them.
Yeah.
Believe me.
It's scary. I know it's scary. I won't go there, but I'm around some of these people.
Well, but you know, this comes to the point where, like we saw with the Supreme Court justice and everything else, where you get to the point where somehow we can't even agree on basic language anymore. And they ask her,
Yeah.
well, can you tell us what a woman is? And well, I'm not really totally sure. It depends upon the context. I mean, she didn't quite say that, but she said something similar.
Yes, you're right. She said she can because she's not a biologist. That's what she said.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine that. And she's sitting on the Supreme Court right now, and she's going to have to decide on issues involving men and women. So how the hell she's going to know the difference if she can't define it?
Exactly.
But if you have this fantasy, if you have this fantasy language too, we run into problems too. I was just talking with somebody else about this the other day, but we saw this with when the lockdowns happened, and Newsom was, down there in LA, and the trains, rail yards were being looted like crazy, and so there's all the cars were being, the packaging and everything. People were just ripping everything off out of these trains. And so Newsom was out there at a press conference trying to act like he was helping pick up some stuff. And so he gets interviewed. And he says, this is like looking like a third world country. We can't have this. And then the crazy part was that he says, we can't have these gangs of thieves. And then he stops himself and he says, oh, excuse me, I mean, these groups of folks. And I mean, if you can't even talk honestly about what we're seeing here, I mean, that's not gangs of thieves that they're breaking into cars. You've got to modify the language to condition us on this, that it's groups of folks. Like that makes it better.
Yeah, really.
Everything he says is coined. It's just ridiculous. We're fed up.
Yes.
We're fed up.
Well,
We all should
Sarah,
be. We all should be.
I guess you guys are fed up to the point where you're gonna just move the state, or at least part of the state. Take it with you, not like the U-Haul people where you're leaving it behind. You're taking it with you.
So my favorite saying is, I get to move to a new state without packing one box.
There you go.
So, so I think it's a T-shirt's made like that. So I have it by one of my counter. So we're up and down the state of California. We have 38 active counties, or more. I mean, we will end up with 57 total counties, but not all of them have representation like a county chair, and so we're trying to spread and get it to grow. And so yeah, Leon, what county are you moving to? We might need you down there.
I'm moving to San Luis Obispo County.
Oh, they're strong. You're gonna love the New California Patriots.
Really?
There. Oh, they're strong.
Okay.
That is New California. You're gonna be in New
okay.
California. Yeah.
Hey, you lucked out, Leon.
Okay.
Hey, Jason, you can always sell your house and move a block over.
Yeah, may have to. Hopefully, you guys have good property tax laws. But one thing I did want to say at the end here, I wanted to bring back up your pages and see if there was anything else you wanted to say. There's a contact page. You have a Rumble page as well. You also have
that's
Telegram.
our Rumble. Sacramento Rural. So those are created by Sacramento County Rural. We have a Rumble. We have a Telegram group. If you want to hear what's going on, join the Telegram group. It is by you. You have to apply, and then we say, "Oh yeah, you're good." We let you in. And the only reason why we have to do this is we constantly get people who want to sell us Bitcoin. So, so we kind of monitor. We just don't let it's public, but you have to request to join. But please, if you want to find out more, you live in Sacramento County, and if you, let's say you live in Placer, or say you live in Yolo, we have people who are there. So the number one thing you should do is go back to the website, New California website, and look in I think it says join, one of those.
Maybe it's the contact, maybe.
It's maybe it's contact. I can't remember which tab it is, but one of those, and maybe it can even be if you scroll all the way down, or maybe it's find out. One of those say find out more.
Yeah, there was an about tab. There's an address for stuff, and
and if you want to help get our delegates back, again, everything is by 100% donation, and we volunteer. So if you find that this is a good cause and you want to get involved, and if you say I'm too busy, I can't get involved, but here I could give you $10, please donate and donate on the tab button. And to help, this literally is going to pay for plane tickets for our delegates who are going back and forth to Washington, D.C. So anything that you can donate is appreciated. So.
Indeed.
Well, Sarah, thanks so much for coming on the show and telling us about New California, because it's always great to hear that there's liberty-minded people out there who, at the very least, just think that the status quo is nuts. That's where we're at. I mean,
we cannot tolerate the status quo. We have to do something to change it. So, and you know what? When you hear the announcement, our admissions bill is on the floor. I would love to come back and tell you more.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, we'd love to have you back when you have more, updates. But thanks so much again for being on the show. And by the way, if you're watching this, and you happen to be in California, the chance to get involved with something. I mean, we're always telling people at the end, look how you can make a difference in your community. So, so if you're in California, maybe, give them a shout. Or if you're in another state, maybe kind of see how they're doing it and, maybe try something there too.
Yes, I have to end with this. New California is the trendsetter. We started that movement. But following us, New Illinois, they don't like Chicago. New Illinois, New Nevada, New Arizona. There's a rumblings of a new Oregon because they're too wacko.
Wow.
Yeah, there's, so we're going to see a lot of.
We may try and get some contacts from you from some of them because it may be interesting to hear some of their stories as well.
Probably the one that's moving along, they've had several constitutional conventions, would be New Illinois. They would be the one. I'll hook you up. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy up there. So I mean, we see Chicago. It's nuts. So okay.
But go to that website and become a member, join, and find your county rep. Even if it's not Sacramento, maybe it's Placer, or maybe it's like San Luis Obispo. Leon, I recommend you do that. Go and make contact with the people in San Luis Obispo. You're going to love them. They are so patriotic.
Awesome.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And if you're watching, until next time, think about what you can do in your community. And until then, stay tuned and stay free.
God bless you.
Oh, yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.